Welcome to another episode of the Good Sugar Podcast. GSP, as the kids call it. Really quickly, you always say this. This is what the show is about. If you're new to the show, my name's Ralph. Marcus Antebi over there. Marcus, the health and wellness guy, in better shape, eats better, doing better. We're trying to make me a better person. That's number one. But number two, why it's called Good Sugar, is that maybe things that you think is bad for you are not necessarily bad. Things that you're thinking are good for you, maybe not so good for you. And today's going to be a really good one because it's all about, for the most part, nutrition. Marcus just opened the Good Sugar restaurant in New York City. So this is all about right up his wheelhouse. Is that fair to say that, Marcus?
I think it's great. I think when you do the intro, instead of saying, oh, I'm a nutrition guy, just tell people I'm smarter than you. Make it, just condense it down and say, Marcus is the smarter one of us two.
Right. Whatever helps you sleep at night. It doesn't bother me at all. All right. So look, we're just going to jump in it right now because I've done a lot of research on this guy. And I think you guys are going to have a spirited debate because there's a lot of commonality, but you certainly disagree in certain areas. So I'm excited to have this conversation. His name is Dr. Jonny Bowden. Is it Bowden or Bowden?
It's Bowden.
Bowden. Okay, because that a couple of things throw me off about your name. A, there's no H in Johnny, and B, there's a W in Bowden. So you're already coming in a little hot.
Contrarian. I'm a contrarian. I was a contrarian when I was born.
Yeah. Well, by the way, let's jump right into that. What I like about you in my first little looking into your life a little bit, last couple of days. Born in Queens. We're all New Yorkers here. That's a good thing, right?
And born in Manhattan, but raised in Queens.
Yes, raised in Queens. And then also that you trained under Herbie Hancock, worked at the Alvin Ailey Theater, and I saw a picture with Liza Minnelli. I mean, not really our audience, Liza Minnelli, but still, Herbie Hancock. Gotta love that.
God, you did some background checks.
I don't. By the way, I don't mind telling you this. I don't fuck around, Mr. Bowden. That's just basically how I roll.
Johnny, please. I was a professional musician before I changed careers in 1990. Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty wild. So why don't we start with that? Because I have some questions. Sure. As I read about it and I saw some pictures of you, you had this, I wouldn't say spiritual awakening because that's weird, but a life awakening to get off drugs, clean up your act, and get healthy, and you pivoted away from the music world into the nutrition world, correct?
That's like the best summary of I usually take 15 minutes to tell that story. You just did it beautifully in a soundbite. That's exactly right. I was a musician. I was everything you would imagine a drug-addicted jazz musician was. And yeah, I had some success, and I trained and worked with Liza and Carly Simon and James Taylor and a whole bunch of other people. But basically, I was a mess. And when around 1990, I was actually traveling with a show, and the actors all stay in shape. We don't have anything to do during the day because we're sitting down in a city and we just do this, we set up, we do the show at night. And I was, at this point, I had given up drugs and alcohol, so I was able to actually handle a Broadway show. And I asked the actors, just out of boredom, dude, show me some of these weight exercises. Some of them took equipment with them on the road, and they just started teaching me some basic stuff. And I was one of those guys who just got bitten by the bug. I became a zealot. The weight came off. I had new energy. All of a sudden, within a year, I knew where the gym was in every single city I went to. We didn't have Whole Foods then. I went to the health food store. I started to change my diet, and I just became a zealot for what fitness and health could do and how it could transform you. And being a nice, academically trained middle-class Jew from New York City, the first thing I thought is, I got to get a degree in this, because you have to be a trainer. Back in those days, man, the only information we had was Muscle and Fiction magazine. I mean, there was just no way to get, solid information, even about training. Some people were doing 100 reps. Some people were doing, 6 reps. What was right? What was wrong? So I became a trainer.
Right.
And I got a certification, and this is while I'm doing my music career, and I liked it even more. So I got another certificate. I ultimately got 6 of them. And one day in 1990, I'm walking down the street and I see a new gym is opening. I'm now a certified trainer. I've never put a hand on a client. I've been in gyms. I've worked with, friends and stuff, but I've never had that relationship, but I had the paper. So I walk in, and the place is called Equinox.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, you heard of it? first time opening, and I walk in, and for whatever reason, I have no idea. I was older than the average trainer at this point. I'm early 40s. I bonded with the Ericos, which is the Italian family that started Equinox, and they hired me. So I start as a floor trainer at Equinox. And that is how I got into nutrition.
And then moved into not just fitness, but also into nutrition. You call yourself a nutritional myth buster. The funny thing about that, which is will segue nicely into some of the things I want to bring up. So Marcus, just so you know, sort of a tie into Equinox, his former company, Juice Press, that he's founded, they're in every Equinox I think in New York, if not everywhere. He founded Juice Press. Yes. So
wow, man, that's impressive.
Yeah. So the interesting thing here is that as I am Marcus is super, super healthy. You know, he's raw vegan, almost exclusively, yoga, meditation, all the stuff that I've heard you talk about, everyone talks about and stuff. And I have been trying to segue more into a healthy lifestyle, right?
Before you go on, let me full disclosure so you guys don't throw me off the show. If nutrition were politics and vegans were...
I know you're not vegan.
I'm the opposite of vegan.
Yeah, I know you.
So I want you to understand and know that is not my definition of healthy eating. It could be.
I know that. That's why I'm excited to have you on.
Okay.
Right, I know that. So I do know that I watched enough of you. Like I am the one. I've been radio for 20 years. I go deep dive into every single guest we have on the show. So I've watched more hours of you than I think you know exists at this point, right? But
sitting outside.
And you still wanted me on the show. That's very flattering.
Marcus, I think your mic is low. Marcus, let me hear you. The problem is this. For me, as you know, Marcus has his belief system. You have yours. Just like with politics, there is no necessarily right or wrong. You could find papers to back up any sort of nutritional guidelines you want. I bet you I could find the Twinkie diet somewhere that shows it's great for you, right?
It exists. There was a guy out, and I'm sorry, I kid you not, who wanted to put, and it doesn't matter. You're absolutely right. You can find data to support just about any narrative that you want to come up with.
And it's usually the company that sponsored the data is the one who finds the nutrition to make sense for them. So Avocado Growers of America are going to show you that avocados are great for you.
All of this is true. It doesn't mean we need to throw out all the data. It means that we need to be aware of who supports the study, because that's been shown in research to have an effect on the outcome. When a company pays for research to be done, they're 5 times more likely to get positive results. That's been shown. It's in the literature. So you're right about that. But I want to say this one thing before we go further. Just like in politics, since we're using that analogy, my approach has always been conciliatory, bring it together, find the common ground. So even when they had these debates back in the 90s and they went to Washington and they debated the Atkins diet versus the vegan Ornish diet, and they were all, I always look, they did have a couple things they agreed on. So I'm always looking for that. So what I found, because I'm always frequently put on the other side of the vegans, and for many reasons, many of which are political and not necessarily nutritional. But I'm not an anti-vegan. Here's what I see we have in common, both the carnivores, and I'm closer to that than I am to a vegan, and the vegans. Eat real fucking food. That's really what we all have in common. I have no problem with vegans who eat nothing but what was hunted, grown, fished, plucked, gathered from the, and I have no problem.
By the way, you haven't lived, Johnny, until you hunted a carrot. It really is impressive.
You haven't lived until you fucked something you ate either.
I'm probably never going to do that, but I get what you're saying. My point is that if you start with the premise that you eat the food that your great-great-great-great-grandmother would have recognized as food, if you showed it to her, I know what to do with that. Unlike, say, a Lunchable, which is what the fuck is that?
Yeah, or a Fruit Loops box or something like that.
Yes, then you're on the right track.
Yeah, you're both on the same page there. Mark is a big advocate of removing processed food, for sure.
In that regard, processed food is now.
Well, it's a universal. It's, you know, the thing that guys like us have to do is we have to discover what are universal truths and talk about it in a way that both the hippie and the scientist would be like, well, that seems like that makes sense.
But here's how you do it. It's very, very simple. people have survived and thrived on high carb diets, not the ones we eat here, but in the Bantu of South Africa, 80% carbohydrates. You'd never recognize those carbohydrates. They're bitter, fibrous vegetables and fruits and tubers and stuff, but they ate carbohydrates and they did great. And their next door neighbors, the Maasai, ate nothing but blood and cow's meat, and they did great. You can find diets that thrive, that people who thrive on all kinds of diets. The Inuit, who started the whole omega-3 thing, they don't even eat vegetables because they don't grow up there in Alaska and in Greenland. So the point is that although you can find people who have thrived on all kinds of different proportions of protein, fat, and carbohydrates, what you cannot find anywhere in the world is people who have thrived on high sugar diets or high starch diets that convert quickly to sugar like our processed carbs do.
Right. Are you raising your hand, Marcus, with a question?
I want to raise my hand because I want to be a nice guy.
Praise hallelujah. I wasn't sure what you were saying.
No, what I want to say at that moment, in as quick as a soundbite as possible, what our phenomenal guest is saying here is truth. But I would urge people to understand that if you really studied the history of human beings, you can see why a community would thrive. Let's say if they were Inuits and they lived in ice and all they ate was fish, what were the common factors that allowed them to survive and thrive with other meat-based societies, and why that probably wouldn't work very well for the city dweller in the year 2021. And that's where I come in, because I can show that, and I can say that we know that for a fact that you can eat plenty of animal protein and live 120 years. There's no doubt. The question is what diet would you prescribe for the average person, not for the freaks of chemistry? People
Did you just call a whole society of Inuits freaks?
No, I'm saying that I could point your eyes in a direction. Right. There was a documentary I watched about a guy who was 107 and he drank alcohol, scotch every day, and all he ate was candy and junk food.
Right.
What is he still doing on the planet? You can't take that diet and say, wow, look, see that example?
Yeah,
and
of course. There's always going to be
100 people, because most people are not going to do well with that.
Yeah.
One problem with that analogy is you're talking about an outlier, one person. And I say that in every lecture I give. You will always find one person who takes 5 Valium and then goes out and parties all night, or one person who drinks a couple of espressos and sleeps like a baby. There are always those. But what we're talking about with the Inuit is an entire culture who did well.
Yeah, but they did well primarily because, starting with, they were highly active. They were free from processed food.
Conceded. 100%.
They breathe clean air.
They also are in cold, which I think, like, it's funny. I often say you could learn a lot about a society. Just show me what their national dish is, and I can tell you, is it a hot climate, a cold climate, a poor culture, a rich culture, just from that dish, because it tells you everything you need to know.
But I don't want to advocate.
They drink. Let me finish what I was saying. Sorry.
No.
They drink clean water, and most importantly, they have a very rich belief system. They have a belief system, and so with those things together, their body can make mistakes. That the human body is a highly adaptive machine, and they can go off of the ideal, optimal path the way the human being was designed. And I don't want to make this into a debate about that. I think that would be a big waste of time.
No, but I think that you guys have more commonality than you realize. I think that's always the thing that I find fascinating, is that with everybody we bring on the show, very often, like you said, Jonny, at the top of this, look for that common belief system. And you already both seem to have a lot of that.
Yeah, and let me just point out, I get asked all the time, well, what is the ideal diet? My answer is there is none. So I want to be clear that I'm not advocating for any one type of diet. What I'm advocating for is, number one, busting the myth that saturated fat and cholesterol cause heart disease, which I will be happy to demonstrate that they do not. And number two, advocating for diets that contain real unprocessed food as much as possible, and that are kind of in accord with, what you would eat if you were hunting, gathering, plucking, and doing things like that. And that can accommodate a wide range of dietary practices. And I also want to advocate, as long as we're throwing in all the things that that you just said so eloquently about, they drink clean water and they breathe clean air. Let's throw in relationships and the connection people have in society and how much that has to do with heart disease. Let me tell you, I talk about this in a number of books, the Rosetta phenomena. It was in 1920s in Pennsylvania, in the hard scrapple town where they were all miners, and the most unhealthy population on earth on paper. Mm-hmm. They ate, terrible food. They worked in the mines. They smoked. They had almost no heart disease, and no one could figure it out. And it became the subject of a lot of research. If you Google the Rosetta phenomena, you'll be reading for years. Mm-hmm. And what they found out is, as horrible as their risk factors were, this group was so socially bonded. There was no such thing as old age homes. Everybody lived together. They ate dinner together. They gardened together. They did square dance. Whatever they did, it was completely bonded community. And those bonds seemed to be so pro-health that they somehow compensated for these ridiculously bad.
I mean, there's no denying these years that your mind and your heart, or whatever you want to call it, those connections are so involved with your health 100%. And your wellness.
I really appreciate what you're speaking about, because you're bringing in other components outside of what would be normal chemistry to describe how things impact the chemistry. But I do want to say that I would love to just do an entire geek out episode with you and wrestle with you for 1 hour straight. Say that every machine that's ever been built by man and every creature on the planet has an optimal diet. I can define that.
Okay.
I saw your eyes go the other direction. I saw that. I'm seeing it. You can't put Jet A fuel into your scooter, and you can't put unmixed gasoline without oil into a 4-stroke engine. You'll see a lion has a diet.
I used to refer to my Johnson as a 4-stroke engine.
Right. The lion has an optimal diet. The whale has an optimal diet. The human has an optimal diet. And there's a factor, since you're talking about relationships, the optimal diet for the human being involves compassion, not just the chemistry. And one can say that as we are trying to evolve ourselves as a nonviolent, compassionate creature, we also have to take into consideration what our diet does to the planet, what our diet does to our brothers and sisters, whether it's the cow, the sheep, the lamb. So that's another entire factor that we can bring in that I think we're excluding, because we're only talking about diet now. We're breaking it down onto a molecular level. And I'll say that in the year 2021, there are very few of us that go hunting, that, grab an animal and snatch it while it was running free. People are eating animal protein from animals that were, raised in prison cells and slaughtered in front of their children. And their children hear the sound of screaming and wailing.
But isn't it true that chickens that cry from the murder of their children taste better?
Yes, that should be our slogan. But I'll say this. I'll say this.
Let Johnny have some breathing room here.
Wait, Johnny, I want to sit with you, and I want to debate this.
But you got to let him talk if he's going to debate you.
That's it. I'm done. Sorry.
No.
I'm turning off my mic.
You are preaching to the choir on this, and I couldn't agree with you more. I may disagree with you about the best way to do those things, but let me tell you, animals, if you've looked into me, I'm an animal lover. I get
until you're hungry.
I think about Michael. I feel the conflict of two beliefs. One is I adore animals. I'm not going to give you my animal credentials. Just trust me. I feel the way you do about that. And two, I am left with the conclusion from 30 years of study, my conclusion, that humans' biochemistry does better with some animal products. And it is a conflict. And
what is better? What are you defining as better? Well, you're not saying that they live longer because they eat animal. They might have more stimulation. They might be happier because they're full. But you better is it's a subjective terminology.
Certainly well-being is subjective terminology.
We'll say that in the city, somebody that grew up on animal protein, someone that doesn't do well when they're hungry, someone who feels great socializing, they enjoy the lusty nature of a delicious steak rolling around in their mouth. Yeah, someone is going to do better under those circumstances. But let's just be clear that on a molecular level, which is where you go to in your mind, there's no difference between a steak and grass. Molecularly, they're made up of the same thing. They're just composed in a different order when you're eating.
Let Johnny respond to that.
Yes, sir.
I just want to clarify one thing. If the only meat that was available to me in America was, as you described, raised in jail-like conditions with no humanity whatsoever, slaughtered mercilessly without concern for what the sound and the feeling and all the rest of it is, was fed antibiotics and steroids and bovine growth hormone, and was fed hay and wheat that was sprayed with Monsanto's Roundup and has all the pesticides and all the crap from that wheat in their fat, which they shouldn't be eating in the first place, I would become a vegan. I would not eat that. The vegans are right about factory farming, 100%. I'll get on the marching line with that. But that's not the only meat that's available. And if you see the movie that Rob Wolf and his partner just made, Sacred Cow, which actually goes into the ecology of farming globally, you see that there are other ways to raise animals and to get some of their very valuable nutrients that we have thrived on since the genus humans were on the planet. I think that there is an alternative to that kind of meat.
What I would like to say here is this.
I want to interrupt.
Mark, let me interrupt a second here.
Go ahead.
I feel that this is a whole other show. There's a couple of things I want to talk to Johnny about, and I think we could have a great episode just on nutrition. But I want to get into the book a little bit, and I had a couple other questions, and I feel like this could be. We should bring Johnny back on one day just to talk diet.
Johnny, I want to acknowledge what you just said was very wise and very beautiful, and you're great. We are on common ground
in many ways.
But there are things that if you gave me the time, even
I give you 5 hours. I don't
think that you're a science follower type of guy. I believe in that. Right. What you said, and we don't even have to answer to it. You said the valuable nutrients that some of that animal flesh can provide. I would challenge you to say, if the nutrient is not available in the plant kingdom, the human body does not need it.
Hold on. The vegan society in Europe.
Fuck them. They don't know shit. Who the hell are those guys?
11 different nutrients they tell vegans to supplement with.
Nonsense.
Okay.
Can we just agree to disagree and move on, for God's sakes?
It's on their website.
Johnny, I love you. Where do you live, by the way?
Los Angeles.
You're in LA? Okay, so we can't be best buds. How old of a guy are you?
74.
You're a kid. You're a kid. No. What are you going to do with the next 40 years of your life?
Explain to you. I'd say a good answer would be explain to Marcus how he's wrong. Okay, so we'll move on to the book.
Wait. I don't want to explain to Marcus how he's wrong.
I know. I'm just kidding. I'm just being an asshole.
Listen, everyone knows, Doc. Johnny, everyone knows.
Also, let me just say this, by the way. I'm going to put a button in this for God's sake. So you guys are going to argue for an hour. One thing that I firmly believe that neither of you could change my mind on is that everybody's different. Just like you said at the top, there's outliers for different things. And some of us will process things differently. Some of us will thrive better in certain scenarios too.
Yes.
Yes, but I don't think that's what I'm
Well, you're saying that no. So, but just like we had a nutritionist on once.
He wants to be socially responsible. I get it. He has a great deal of feeling for animals. I get that. He wants to find a diet like the Lancet article tried to do last year, which is going to be best for humans and best for the planets. I get the sentiment. I don't want to argue with you about that at all. I agree.
That's my
by the way,
agenda.
just so you both know, I kick dogs down the street. If I see a dog, I kick it in the face.
Kick it. I just want you. I want the listener.
Joking,
I want
Johnny,
Ralph,
and
I want to just make it clear that my agenda is never to preach that this is the way you should do stuff. I'm not doing that at all. What I do in the businesses that I've created and what I do in the things that I write is I try to give people a baseline understanding of what the mountaintop was. If you're climbing up to the top and you're going to put a flag up here, this is what is the ideal. You have to decide for yourself then, when you know what the north is, which path you're going to take and how close you're going to get to the top. That's how I look at it.
I like it.
Okay, we can put a button on that for now.
Okay, let's get back to Ralph's penis.
No, so now You know, you'd be surprised how many people have said that
I
to
was
me in my life.
hoping you'd get to that. That's the reason I came on the show.
Ralph needs to constantly talk about his penis.
Now I realized I saw an interview with you where you talked about how much your blood feeds your brain and how that is good for your genitalia as well. I saw that in some interview that you did. So we're not too far off, but let's go just to the main. I have a couple of topics, but the main one, the book that you revived, or rather revised, The Great Cholesterol Myth. The theory or the idea behind it is that what we have been told our whole lives for indicators for what is good and bad cholesterol and how you should manage that cholesterol is now being found out to be total bullshit. Correct?
Yeah, in a nutshell, in a soundbite, that's exactly correct. And the reason, interesting enough, the thing we spent the last 15 minutes talking about is kind of how I got from being a trainer to being a PhD nutritionist and who writes books about cholesterol and aging and all the rest of the stuff. The way it happened was, here I am, 1990, totally low fat, totally believe in the calorie theory. It's like burn those calories up on the Stairmaster and eat that low fat shit, and you'll just be fine. And if you're not losing weight on that program, it's because you're cheating or you're lying. It can't be because our advice is boneheadedly wrong. So that's 1990, and here I am telling my clients to do that, and the Atkins Diet comes out in the third edition, 1992, the third edition of New Diet Revolution. Atkins is now in the news. People are trying it. They're coming to us, to the trainers at Equinox and everywhere else, I imagine, and they're going, I'm going to try that Atkins Diet. My neighbor lost a lot of weight. My golf pro just got, he really helped. And we would say, dude, you cannot do that. You can't do that. You might lose a couple of pounds, but that cholesterol, the saturated fat, this guy's telling you to eat bacon and pork rinds. Are you kidding? You will die. You will have a heart attack. Please don't do it. And they didn't listen. And they'd come back. I remember one in particular, he was over 200 pounds. He's been struggling with this. All of a sudden, his belly's shrinking. He comes back and says his blood pressure is lower. His eyes are clearer. I can see that. And he's got more energy. One thing is very clear. He didn't die. And I've got a degree in psychology, which you don't need to have to know what cognitive dissonance is, which is basically two things can't exist in the same space if they're contradictory. You can't fit a square and a round peg into the same hole. So what the brain does is it tries to make an accommodation and figure out how these two things can't both be true. So first premise, the Atkins diet will kill you. Second premise, this guy ain't dead. And many others. Something's wrong. It's not wrong that he's not dead. Right. So I start thinking, maybe we weren't told the whole story. And if you think about it, the only reason we have been told not to eat saturated fat, not to eat animal products, not to eat fat in general is because it raises cholesterol. And we all know that cholesterol causes heart disease. Well, what if it doesn't? What if cholesterol is not the major risk factor for heart disease? What if that hypothesis is not true? What happens to those dietary regulations, those dietary recommendations that the entire planet has been under since about 1970? Right. What happens to that? They collapse like a house of cards because they're built on quicksand. And that's what I noticed then. And that's when I started to be a little skeptical that we had been told the whole story by the American Dietetic Association and all the other conventional organizations who told us it's all about saturated fat and cholesterol. When I started, I was at this point a successful trainer, and I was teaching trainers at conventions like IDEA and the other things that trainers meet and have conventions over, and nobody ever questioned my credentials because I was talking the party line. Soon as I started having some questions about this fat and cholesterol hypothesis, and I started to speak about them, they started to go, what does he know? He's not a doctor. He's not even a nutritionist. He's a personal trainer. He's crazy. So I did what a lot of people who in that boat do. I said, fuck you. I went back to school. I got a PhD. I got board certified by the American College of Nutrition. And then I said, you know what, guys? Your theory of cholesterol and saturated fat is full of shit. And now I got the letters to prove it. And I've spent the last, 10 years talking about that and writing about it in my 15 books. And hopefully that message is beginning to penetrate, because when we wrote the book originally in 2012, when we got on Dr. Oz, they got letters of protests from doctors saying, how are you having these quacks on? People are going to die if they follow these advice and get off their statins and stuff like that. 10 years later, There is a substantial and vocal minority in the functional medicine community who knows that the saturated fat cholesterol hypothesis is bullshit.
Well, the one thing that I would say, and I'm sure Marcus is going to weigh in on this as well. On my other show that I do, I interviewed Neil deGrasse Tyson on my other show. Big
Name dropping.
I
And
vaguely know he's some kind of
some sort of hack,
Yeah.
right? But what he said that I feel is a message that gets lost a lot in America is science is not what we know. Science is what we believe at this moment.
oh,
So I feel that that is not expressed enough. So maybe at the time there was data to back it up, but then when you look at it, it wasn't necessarily the right extrapolation from the data.
Of course. And that's all we've ever said. Look, you got 5 minutes. I'll tell you the history of the Hdl Ldl test and why it's a crock of shit now. In the old days, before you guys were born in the 60s,
Hey, I was born in the
they used to
60s.
have health fairs. They used to have what was called a health fair. They wanted to alert people to the notion of health. And there would always be a booth where they would measure your cholesterol.
Mhm.
And you go and you get a little fingerprint and they'd say, oh, Mrs. Jones, your cholesterol is 230. That's just great. And that's how we measured cholesterol. And then around 1963, laboratories realized, actually cholesterol travels in two different kinds. These containers look a little different. One of them is kind of a high density one, which means if you drop it in water, it'll sink. It's high. And the other one's kind of lower density. It's kind of composed of a different mix of, let's call one of them HDL and call the other LDL. A great innovation, fantastic. It was very much more valuable to know that because these things did function differently. And you got the concept of good and bad, the most simplistic thing I've ever heard of. Cholesterol, and everybody was with that. Great improvement. Let's go to cell phones. I don't know if you remember, but the early satellite phones in the 80s were like the size of a Buick, and
Sure.
people would walk on them and they'd have these pictures of showing these like real big executives they had a satellite phone. And then what happened in the early 90s? We got the flip phone. Major innovation.
Right.
Remember, you had to text by hitting 3.
Of course,
to get
yeah.
a number, right?
T9.
Hdl Ldl test was a great innovation in 1963. It's the fucking flip phone, and we're still using it.
Right.
Why do I say it's a flip phone? Because now we have nuclear magnetic resonance. We have an NMR. We can measure inside the cell and see that there are 13 subtypes of cholesterol.
Wow.
And they don't all behave the same, and they don't fall into categories of good and bad. And LDL doesn't even fucking predict heart disease, because if you look at the data of admissions to hospitals in the US, and there's at least 3 studies I know of this, you look at the admissions for coronary artery disease, and you look at their cholesterol, between 50 and 70% of them have normal cholesterol. It doesn't,
Oh, wow.
the old way of measuring it is bullshit. And
I agree.
a statin drug because of a
That's
measurement.
another big part of it is they just want to prescribe the statin drugs is a big part of
Based
it.
on an incorrect measurement. That's my problem.
The root of the problem within the scientific community is not that we want, I say we, not that I'm a scientist, but
You could say I'll allow it.
thank you,
I'll allow it, sir.
is that people fuck it up, not the science. The following science in any day and age, even if it was 6,000 years ago, there's a science of that time. Like, why is the earth shaking? Whatever it is.
Right.
The thing that hurts science are the people behind it, because there is a disease in that community called academic snobbery. It's when a person has a PhD or they're a renowned scientist or they're the leading expert, that becomes their fame, that becomes their livelihood, that becomes the thing that gives them credibility. And if I possess a certain amount of knowledge, I'm going to be rewarded in one way or the other. And I can also become the person that impedes progress. And so essentially a good scientist really has to be open and unattached and say, this is what I know today. It's a sand castle. It's going to wash away tomorrow.
I think a lot of good scientists do look at it that way, but I also think there's a bigger problem, which is people want to make money by prescribing drugs. And I think that's
Certainly.
the other
And
issue.
I'll just say one thing, Doc, I call you that now because now I hear that you got a PhD in your title, is that the one reason why an idiotic diet like keto or Atkins, by the way, Atkins died. He died. His heart exploded on an ice skating ring, I heard. No judgment to him.
Not true.
common factor
not
all
true,
these
Marcus.
moronic diets have, the paleo, the gluten-free, all these idiotic diets have, is that at a particular moment in time, holistically, the patient is eliminating processed fucking food. And so they're getting that much improvement in their overall diet. If you looked at that and said, well, that's actually what's happening. The schmuck can eat all these other ridiculous things and do well for a period of time. They're all eliminating processed
Because he's not
food.
eating Doritos and Fruit Loops anymore.
And certainly the problem is that if you looked at them over a longer period of time, they would start to develop the problems. I'm not going to put it with high cholesterol and other things like that. But the right way to look at a diet is you must look at it holistically. You've got to look at the overall individual and say, what is this person's overall lifestyle? Are they very athletic? Are they highly sedentary? Are they prone to depression? Do they have a spiritual and metaphysical worldview? And then you can prescribe the right diet. But overall, if you take out processed food from any individual's diet, they're going to do 95% better. And they probably wouldn't have to do much more than that to have longevity.
At least see marketable increase. I mean, that again is where you both are on the same page. One more question about it, Doctor.
Well, except I would never call keto and paleo crazy diets.
I think they're insane. Insane.
Well, again, by the way, guys,
I got your name. I got your number.
I'm stepping in here. We're going to do another episode one day just where you guys can debate nutrition. But let me ask you this, Dr. Bowden.
Johnny,
why do you
please.
think the science takes so long to catch up? Like, as you said, it's the 60s since we've had an improvement in how people are doing the cholesterol, how we're checking it. What's the reason, the broken part of that system, that it's been 50 years and there's not been a new way of looking at it? No other, if you think about it, there's no other platform that doesn't innovate as quickly. You know, every platform, no, but even Marcus, other platforms innovate. So innovation would help.
That's more of a psychosocial, social psychology, economic question. And let me answer it by giving you a little historical context. Vitamin C was discovered in 1730. It wasn't accepted as a nutrient until 1780. It saved lives on ships. That's why we call British sailors limeys, because they figured out that vitamin C prevented scurvy. It took them 50 years to put that into the pharmacopoeia. I
tried to make oranges a thing, but nobody liked it.
Homocysteine, which is a known risk factor for heart disease, known risk factor for stroke, measured on standard tests now.
Mm-hmm.
When it was first invented at Harvard, when it was first discovered and noticed by Kilmer McCulley at Harvard, not only did they laugh him out of existence, they demoted him from Harvard to give him a basement lab with like one postdoc student. He finally was driven out of Harvard. He lived in disgrace for having these crazy ideas that questioned the cholesterol hypothesis. 25 years later, he's back at Harvard. Homocysteine is an accepted risk factor for all these things.
I think it goes back to what Marcus said on how when you are at a certain level, people don't want to not take you for serious. I guess that's what it is.
And every generation of scientists has the same thing, and they never.
But it's different. No, the reason why I'm interrupting Mark is that other forms of science are more accepting. You know, like
it's not that. It's just funny when you watch the history of science. You look at how science, the community at large, they never learn from the same repeat mistake over and over again.
But I'm saying, look, Marcus, what I'm saying is that like dentistry has improved dramatically.
I got it.
Other things, you know, whether it be eyesight or ears, but
I'll tell
health
you,
is one.
I have a theory on that.
Mm-hmm.
You don't hear a lot of debate in physics about whether light is a particle or an element. I mean, you don't hear that because it doesn't affect people's lives. There aren't billions of dollars spent on promoting one theory of whether it's a wave or a particle. Who cares, right? It's a theoretical thing. And if there's good data that shows that it's actually a particle, we'll go with particle. If there's good data that shows it's a wave, who the fuck cares? We're talking about people's food. We're talking about their daily habits. We're talking about their routines, their lifestyle. These are enormously impactful things. They don't change easily. They are a mix of social ideas, cultural ideas, food ideas, nutrition ideas, all of these things. And they're supported by an economy, an agricultural economy that makes these foods, the very foods that make us sick, fat, tired, and depressed. 5 of the top products in the United States agriculture, 4 of them are the exact wheat, soy, cotton, sugar. I mean, except for cotton, there's your junk food recipe. And you've got, as you pointed out, $31 billion a year industry just in lowering cholesterol. So that stuff doesn't change as fast as, light is a particle, it's not a wave. Okay, let's go with that. No, it takes a while.
With dentistry, you'll never see a dentist put silver filings in teeth anymore. They got rid of that because they knew it was bad for you.
And there's no group who's advocating for silver filings.
I guess that's what it is. Yeah, that's Ralph, the other part of it.
I have a theory of why it moves very slowly.
Okay.
Nutrition is one of the most difficult frontiers because it's a science that really actually borrows from all of the sciences at one time. It's, when you think about it, it's a convergence of anatomy, biology, chemistry, the history of humanity. There's people can be confused by one group of people who only eat meat and live 100 years. There's a lot of things in there that have to be worked out. And one of the great limitations that the scientific community has in this area is that a scientist is likely to be limited by their own dietary limitations, how deep they're willing to go into it, what they believe in.
Yeah, that's going to be that.
And so following that, when you look at it, if let's pretend I had the highest degree, PhD, I got the Congressional Medal of Honor, I have 5 Pulitzer Prizes,
the Purple Heart,
glowing. I am. If there was enough accolades to make me into a 9-star general of food.
Right.
If I was a raw vegan and I was 103 and I got up on stage and said, guys, the right way to live is no alcohol, tobacco free, meditate, be kind, be compassionate, no meat, drink plenty of raw, fresh juices, they would fucking stone me.
Right. That's true.
They would literally
But also,
take me down.
The last bit of this, again, goes back to what we said at the top of the conversation. There's also where you all process things differently. And that also could be one of the hardest reasons why it's everyone to come to an understanding together. So I want to hit one or two other things, Dr. Bowden, and then we'll wrap this up. I know you had COVID-19. Are you better now?
I am.
It's out of your system.
It's gone.
Yeah, I know you're a big advocate of vitamin D.
I am.
And the one thing I would ask you, because you had said in an interview, over 5,000 or 10,000 IUs, is that the right terminology?
5,000 is the one that I recommend.
And the industry standard here is no more than 4. So you go
no more than 400 or
4,000. 4,000.
I'm not sure about that. If you ask conventional medicine doctors, they'll tell you 600 milligrams.
Oh, I saw when I did my research, 4,000 was the high end of what they would recommend.
By the way, can I point something out? I was around when the debates existed about should we make the minimum requirement up to, should we move it to 600 from 400 milligrams? I don't know. There's not enough evidence. I was around for that bullshit debate. And now they're saying, well, 4,000.
Right.
So,
okay, yeah, because I guess, again, we go back to the whole thing that I think it's an ever-evolving ecosystem on what we believe and what we know.
I believe 5,000 is a sweet spot for most.
You need more IUs of vitamin D if it's coming from a natural source that has not been preserved and is not shelf stable and would not be something that you find in Duane Reade. The stuff that's synthesized and made and put in a capsule that lasts for 2 years, it's very concentrated. So that number is going to change based on what the source of the vitamin D3 is. If it's coming from lichen, as an example, which is an algae, a moss type plant, you probably can take a lot more of it. And if you take more of it, as we like to say in the industry, is it's expensive supplements equals expensive urine. I would not take more of it if you're taking a pharmaceutical grade supplement.
I can see that Johnny so disagrees with you.
I've done so many videos on the expensive urine hypothesis. I believe I can demolish it in about 1 minute.
Go ahead. Let's hear it. Let's do it. Let him do it.
Demolish it in 8 seconds because I was being
Let him do it, Marcus.
I was teasing.
I'd like to hear it. Johnny, you have the floor.
Doctors say this. Marcus, seriously, I've heard this all my life as a trainer, as a nutritionist, even today. There are doctors, respected doctors who say that shit. Here's why.
Marcus, let him have the floor. Marcus, let him have the floor.
I'm retracting first.
All right. Well, for those who might still believe that, okay? Anybody know any professional bodybuilders? Have you ever?
I know a lot of them.
Know anybody who's ever taken steroids?
I know 2 guys right now that do it.
Okay, great. Do they show up in the blood, in the urine? I mean, in the urine when they do
You know what? I don't have that answer. I
I do. When they do steroid testing at the Olympics, when they do steroid testing at the what's the Federation of Bodybuilding? They test for steroids in the urine. They show up.
Mm-hmm.
Tell those bodybuilders they didn't work. When you have cocaine testing for jobs, and
I get it. I see what you're saying.
Tell them
Just because it's in the urine doesn't mean it didn't affect the body.
I retracted because that's more
like
of it's a cliche of what I'm saying.
Is like a lot of the ones.
Wait, if I took 165 vitamins per day,
yeah,
I'm gonna get a benefit from it. And what I meant to say, and I won't use that expression anymore. I appreciate.
I really like that, by the way. It was a good analysis. Analogy.
I won't use that expression. What I mean to say is that if a person goes out and takes a lot of extra supplements, more so than what's needed, there probably isn't going to be a deleterious effect. Let's say probably, because we'll leave it open. But the idea is a lot of it is wasted, and that's what I meant to say.
Okay.
Fair
if
enough.
I take
Also,
11,000 milligrams,
I don't mind that. So that's great. I will let my body take as much of the vitamins that things I take as it needs, and it'll be out the rest. Who gives a shit?
That's all I meant to say.
I think by the way, it's good. And that's the only debate is that Marcus is saying all natural gets assimilated better than something that's been processed.
It does.
And also, all natural is not as high potency.
Not always true. Folic acid is better absorbed than folate, which is the natural form of it. Once in a while, the reverse happens.
Well, because you can concentrate something, and you can, in a laboratory, make something, you can derive its essence, and you can concentrate it the same way you concentrate sugar. Concentrated processed sugar is sweeter and has a different effect on your chemistry than eating an apple.
Right. All right. Fine. I think we're all on the same page on that one. We have to wrap this up. But Johnny, I tell you this,
moderator, Ralph. Great moderator.
I would love to have you back on the show, Johnny, and we could debate more of this. And the book is called The Great Cholesterol Myth. It's just been newly updated. His website, Jonny Bowden, no H, but add a W in Bowden. Make it easy to find there. And just anything else that you would like to plug or mention before we wrap this up?
No, I think this has been a great discussion. I just want to reiterate, I don't debate. Here's the thing with vegans. This is what I always say.
They're all assholes?
I never said that, and I don't believe that. I think there are two reasons that people become vegans, and one of them I don't touch as a debate, and that is if they have a feeling that they can't eat anything that once had a face. If they
ethical, you can't argue ethics.
If you have that, it's almost like a religion. You can't argue religion either. If you feel that way, I have no argument with you, and I won't debate you. If you come to me and say, I don't give a shit about vegans are healthier, and here's why, and this is what we can get, and we can get these same nutrients, like for example B12 and omega-3s, we can get them from plants, blah, blah, blah. I'll debate you under the table.
By the way, this is what we're going to do.
Even touch it if you tell me I'm a vegan because I just can't eat animals.
I'm going to say this, Johnny, and Marcus, don't respond right now. I'm going to say this. I want to bring you back on, and we're going to call it the Great Nutrition Debate, and we'll get you guys to go toe-to-toe.
On my career, for 74 years, I don't debate vegans, but I'll do it for you
guys. But not on ethics.
I wouldn't
not on ethics, on nutrition,
not
on the
ethics
side.
Vegan.
What?
I would never debate with him as a vegan. I would debate as just someone who has an understanding of this stuff and may look at it from a different perspective.
Whatever perspective.
You have an emotional connection to because you called the cockamamie keto diet and that stupid.
I hate the keto diet. I hate it. I hate it.
That's my point.
We got to wrap, Marcus. We got to wrap. Johnny, Dr. Bowden, thank you so
Love
much.
You guys.
Follow me everywhere on social media at I Am Ralph Sutton. My other podcast, Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll, the SDR show, comes out every Wednesday, every Saturday. Marcus, the Goodsugar pop-up restaurant is open right now. It's on the corner of 2nd Avenue and 1st at the Collective. I'm going to be there later today. When you
guys are in New York. Oh man, I got to see you when I come in.
For sure. Come in, and we'll put gloves on both of you.
I'm coming in at the end of the year. Sure.
We'll put gloves on both of you. I'll wear a referee shirt, and we'll do an actual debate on nutrition. It'll be fascinating.
There's nothing to debate. Johnny's a great man. He's got a great understanding. He just needs a little touch-ups and a few things to keep him on the right path.
I was going to say the same thing.
Dr. Bowden, thank you so much. We'll see you next week on the Goodsugar Podcast.